Let's get started. My name is Dax, CEO, co-founder FOMO.ai. Today, we're going to be talking about why most content marketing fails. And to do that, we're going to talk about what's changed in the world, right? Why is Google no longer a search engine? What has been happening to people's organic traffic numbers? And then I'm just going to give you the playbook that we use for a lot of these great brands we're lucky enough to call clients, such as PetMeds, Noom and Minted. And we actually have a couple of clients I can see on the call today as well. So welcome. For those of you that did just join, there is the chat function that we now have operational, and I will keep an eye on that as I go through the presentation. Feel free to put any sort of question in there you want or feedback, or I always love to hear what you've tried along the lines of what I'm going to be talking about today. So definitely feel free to put that in the chat too. Your question, I will either attempt to answer it in the moment, I'll wait to the end. But in addition, we are going to have plenty of time today to be addressing lots of questions at the end. And so if you have questions that are not really relevant to what we're talking about today around content, but you have questions in general about anything we talked about related to AI, I'm going to stay on for the full hour after we've finished the presentation so that we can have a conversation and I can help answer those for you. I always love to do that. I'd love it if you would throw in the chat your sort of comfort level with AI. That really helps me as we go through the content. And then you will notice currently on the screen is a QR code. And then I've put the QR code in the top corner of each of the slides that we're going to go through today. And that QR code will go to Calendly, where you can schedule a one-on-one with me. That's there for you to use as you see fit. If you want to talk about any ways we can help you, if you just generally have more questions that we don't get to today, if there's anything down the line that you're confused or uncertain about with AI, then feel free to schedule a call. I find it super fun. Hence I do this. So what is going on in the world with content and why does today matter? I sort of hate the word disruption now, right? Doesn't it feel sort of overused? But it really is the best adjective we have for what has happened. The big headline for a start is Google's not a search engine anymore. It's a knowledge engine. And we'll look at why, and we'll look at the implications for you for that. My background was building global ad agencies. I probably spent a couple of $1 billion on behalf of lots of brands, and the marketing foundations that we all used right up until 6 months ago, they're all breaking and they're all going away. And when I spend my time talking to marketers and CMOs and business owners, they're worried because the very things they've relied on as their way to drive their business are now breaking. We have no choice. We have to adjust, right? It is as simple as that. What worked 6 months ago barely works today and is certainly not going to work 6 to 12 months from now. 2025 is going to be the year where every marketing team has to reevaluate how it is going to reach customers, how it's going to grow its brand, how it's going to do that marketing. The good news is, though, there is a way to win, and I see it really as my job, as our team's job, to always know what the playbook is at the best moment. And how will that playbook have to be adjusted as we go forward over the months following? I'm going to show you the exact playbook that we use for some of those brands that we already work with for you, and you can implement it as you see fit. Very briefly, what I want you to know about FOMO.ai is we've been building dedicated AI marketing teams. So what does that mean? Well, there's a platform there that is full of brand new colleagues waiting for you, an SEO manager, a brand photographer, copywriter, etc. And if you're so inclined and you have the resources in your organization and you already have a sort of content strategy or marketing strategy laid out, you can log in and do it yourself. For those brands that don't have those things in place, or they just don't have the resources, or they don't quite have the AI confidence yet, like a Noom, like a PetMeds, like a Minted, like a PB 5-star, we will do it for you, right? And we have great agency lead people just to be able to handle it all for you, but it's still faster, cheaper, better because it's using the AI team that we built. All right. I noticed a couple of people since we got started have just joined, so I just want to give you a heads up. There is a chat function down at the bottom of your screen, and you can use that any time. I appreciate this is a big, scary headline, but it's actually coming faster than even I thought when I first made this slide 6 months ago. Clicks from Google are disappearing. I talk to brands every week. Many are down 20%, a lot are down 20%, and some even more. And it varies a little bit. Is it B2C? Is it B2B? What type of business are they, etc. But clicks from Google are decreasing. And we think across the industry, we are going to see about a 50% reduction in all clicks from Google. That's a sort of scary number. It's happening, though, for two big reasons. The first reason is that we have all been retrained over the last 3 years, 4 years, to interact with search differently. So this point is not even related to the AI disruption. This is just what was happening before. Voice search, so using your watch, using your Siri, using your Alexa, whatever it might be, our brains are pretty interesting. Bizarrely, my major was evolutionary genetics, so I'm fascinated by this, right? Human beings, when we talk to an electronic device, our brains think we're talking to a person. And so we go conversational, right? We don't type in things like AI marketing SEO, right? That's something we type in. When we use our voices, we might say, what's the best AI marketing SEO company or agency, etc. We ask questions. And Google loves that, because if I just type in AI marketing SEO, the number of things I could be looking for is astonishing. But if I ask a question like, what is the best so-and-so, Google then knows far more accurately what I want. Because it knows more, it can give me a better answer. And so some of you may have noticed it, but in Google, without them really telling us, what they've been doing is retraining us and diving into this idea of questions. So you'll see on Google, people also ask, right? That was Google's first attempt at really making search conversational, right? And so a massive percentage of search is now a voice, like so many more than I would have ever predicted. And I watch the trends and it's just mad. Wearable device adoption is definitely a big driving factor here, and it changes country by country, and it changes based on the demographic, as you can imagine, of who you're targeting. Every demographic, to one degree or another, though, is now using voice search. So we can't ignore it, and Google hasn't ignored it, and so therefore it doesn't matter if we want to ignore it or not. Google's not ignoring it and has changed. The second thing that's changed is this. This is now at the top of most Google searches, right? For a little while, for those of you who've attended these sessions before, it was called Search Generative Experience, SGE. It's now not. It's called AI Overviews. And essentially, this is where your traffic's going. Google has always been a search engine to us all, right? We would think of Google, we'd have this emotional connection to Google. As we wanted to find something, Google was the best people to do it. We all collectively said, it's not Yahoo, it's not Bing, it definitely wasn't Ask Jeeves. DuckDuckGo exists, but that's for a different reason. That's privacy, right? So generally, if you were focused on the best results, Google was your pal. Google now is breaking the promise with all of us, right? The Google promise was, if you wrote good content and you did a few things, right, technical SEO audits, etc., which are absolutely a bit of a scam. I can't believe the SEO industry. Feel free to book a session with me on that. Got myself distracted then. So the AI overviews are there, and Google is answering the questions for you. And because they're answering the questions, they've broken that promise, which was, we made good content, you link to that content, right? That just isn't the case anymore. You write good content, they'll summarize it, and they'll answer the person for you. There's lots of people who are asking, why would Google do that? Because it's negatively impacting paid search, etc. Well, they have to. And it's too long a conversation for this topic, but go on the side or sign up for our newsletter and I'll send you some stuff on it. Essentially, there is only one last tech race left to win. I'll claim I know, but I think it's true. And that is, who's going to be your AI personal assistant for the rest of your life? And I think it's between Android and Apple, because we're already wedded to these devices, right? And at the moment, they're really terrible on the phones. But once they get better, that's going to be your personal AI for the rest of your life. I think we're going to have court cases where it's almost like a murder charge if you delete someone's AI assistant after 10, 20 years of working with them. Google has to do this because that's the tech race it wants to win. And that dwarfs paid search revenue a millionfold. Doesn't matter so much for this conversation. What we need to know and prepare for as marketers is this has happened and it is happening, and this is where your traffic has gone. How does this tie together with voice search and questions? Well, it's because, again, when we're talking to AI, our primitive brains, thanks to evolution, look at this and say, oh, I'm talking to a person. It's like I'm DMing a friend, right? Or I'm Slacking, or I'm Teamsing. Is Teamsing the word? I don't use Teams. Teamsing. We're Teamsing that person. And so we start asking questions and go conversational, right? And then of course, it's a thread. So we get to go backwards and forwards and have that conversation more and more. It's conversational. These two things have happened in the same place. So that's a bit of a primer. Let me tell you about, I mentioned this idea that all of our typical marketing channels are being disrupted, right? So I just told you about how SEO is broken, fundamentally broken. I hinted at, but let me be very clear about the fact that Google's changing, so therefore paid search is changing dramatically. It's going to look very, very, very different and is already starting to go that way. And that creates uncertainty. So another channel people used was pay to play, right? Sponsored content, etc. In December, maybe November, Google looked at Forbes, looked at CNN, looked at all those places where lots of us have spent money to post an article for our thought leadership, right? For building our profiles. And they said this. They said all of these sites are doing something it doesn't like. And Google likes to call it site reputation abuse. And essentially what they're saying is they've just busted us all, right? They're saying you're only paying to play to put an article on Forbes Business because it helps you get some of their site reputation. And Google said no more. And they de-indexed Forbes pay to play site. They de-index CNNs, and it's a shit show, quite frankly, across the industry, right? Forbes, I heard, I don't know if this is true. Forbes, I heard through some industry friends back in London last week that they're just going to get rid of that whole section now because there's now no monetization value for them. So that's another channel that is now disrupted and is really sort of up in the air as to what happens. And then look who comes along. It was nice in the search world for a while, wasn't it? Right? When the Yahoos and Bing largely went away. Ask Jeeves. Do you remember when Ask Jeeves, by the way, tried to be the female search engine? There's a reason why they're not around anymore. And then it was easy. We really had to focus on Google. And a monopoly is not a great thing, but as marketers, it sort of made it easy for us. Now we have Perplexity, Gemini, and SearchGPT. Very briefly, what are they? They're all lumped together at the moment and called AI search engines. Gemini's Google. So that's interesting because really Gemini is probably already powering some of the search results, and to some degree they say that. But I think you can imagine that if Google wants to win that last tech race, the more it can have Gemini, if that's going to be its assistant name, engage with you in all touch points, including search. Gemini and Google search are going to merge together. SearchGPT from ChatGPT, obviously. It's Bing in many ways, and it's getting better, but I don't think it's that better. Perplexity's the one. Perplexity's a phenomenal alternative to search engines because instead of saying things like, what's the best dental insurance in Denver, you can now string together things like conversational searching. So you can say, well, I'm looking for dental insurance in Colorado. I am self-employed. I need this, 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 and I need it to be reviewed. And ideally, some dentist within 3 miles of me will take that insurance, right? It will go figure that out, right? And so the interesting thing is, right, these are all the claims that people are making, including the AI search engines themselves, about AI search engines. I went and read them all, so you don't have to. Forgive the ugly slide. There is a product idea, which is the power of 10x. If your product is 10 times better, you don't have to market it. right? It's how ChatGPT went viral. Hate that word, but it's how it went viral. It was 10 times better than anybody had ever seen anything before. Perhaps as important as the arrival of electricity. I think Perplexity is getting close to that. I think Search GPT and Gemini are not. In theory, it has more nuanced understanding. In theory, it's better search algorithms, multi-layered, more texture, more belief, more something, maybe it's substance. It's all based around human conversation, which is more natural to us, and it gives you answers a bit like you can get in a Reddit. And Reddit's another fascinating topic in this industry. I think it's probably due for a massive acquisition because it has so much great training data. People claim that creativity in how these search engines will operate is really important. I don't know. That's an interesting one, something to watch. It believes that the content you write, if you want it to appear in the search engine results in those things. And it's interesting. I keep calling it a search engine. Is it a search engine? I don't know. It's an assistant, maybe. I think it's going to get called a search engine for a while. There are arguments that say the content you write should invoke an emotional response because most interesting conversations any of us have ever had have had some degree of emotional element, positive or negative, right? I bet there aren't many conversations you can think back to in your life that were really important to you that had no emotional response attached to it, right? Interesting thought. Keywords won't matter on any topics. That's already happened. That's part of the playbook, and I'll show that to you in a minute. Here's something I want you to remember. No one knows. This is brand new, right? This is brand new. It is my job and it is my team's job to know as best as we can so that we can consistently deliver results for clients, or we can bake it into the autonomous AI marketing teams you can access. That's our job, right? But nobody knows for sure. And so what I would say is when you're reading stuff or when you're playing with them, all three of these, plus Google, plus Bing now, because that's underpinning ChatGPT and SearchGPT, they're all relevant. They're all copying off each other. They're all in a race for features. And so it's a triangulation of what they're all doing, right? Somebody will go on LinkedIn and I don't like LinkedIn anymore. Someone will go on LinkedIn and will write a thought piece, probably with AI, and say it was their own, about how Perplexity has won the game, blah, blah, blah. Well, Google's going to copy the winning features, and so is ChatGPT, and vice versa, right? So it's a triangulation of where this is happening. I think it's all heading a bit more so far towards the gravitational pull of Perplexity's feature set. TBC. Don't forget, QR code in the top left-hand corner if you want to schedule a one-on-one with me to talk about any of this stuff. Who's your audience, right? And I don't mean, are they male, are they female, are they another gender, or what age are they, where are they based? I actually mean, right, at the moment, you already have two websites. You have a website that is the public one, right? That is where people with eyeballs go to. And then you sort of have a second one, which is the one for Google. It's your site map and all that kind of good stuff, right? So you have two versions already. You're going to have a third one. And whether these all merge together soon, TBD. But you're going to have a third one. Why? Because most people inside the next 24 months that come to your website won't be coming to your website themselves. Their AI agent will be doing it for them. Sounds mad, doesn't it? On Thursday, Friday last week, OpenAI launched their first operator. It is an agent that can take over your screen, your mouse, your keyboard. It can go off and do anything you want. You can tell it to go research everything. You can tell it to go find you flights. You can tell it to go put together your whole travel itinerary. I watched somebody the other day who works in IT tell it to provision 1,000 servers against all this criteria and create a Google sheet and put in the username and passwords and email those out to people. And it did it all. We're all going to be doing that. I bet everybody on this call, given the fact that you took the time to come to this call on this topic, you're going to be doing that this year. So the websites we make as marketers, what does it matter? I don't know if it's going to be the same website. I don't know yet if it's going to be a different website. I think it'll probably, if I had to put money on it, I think it's the same website. But I think we structure it a bit differently. We probably use some meta tagging, etc. But the AI is smarter than Google was indexing. So there's a thought for you. Okay, I promise you the playbook. Here's the playbook. Um, Winning in content, organic growth strategy, SEO, however you want to describe it. This is the playbook we use for those clients. Remember at the beginning, I said you can do it yourself with our AI team, or we'll do it for you. This is the exact playbook we use for the clients. We do it for them. First of all, you have to know the conversation, right? I told you about voice search. I told you about AI overviews, all that super, super, super important. You have to know the top conversation. And I want you to care far less about keywords. They matter a little bit still. We'll see that. But I want you to care much more about big topics and big themes. So, conversation around FOMO.ai is, of course, role of AI, AI in marketing, AI for winning in SEO. But it's also might be a topic like how do you might be topics around hiring and getting the most out of virtual assistants overseas. Why? Because all those people, I'm the alternative, right? Hire an AI team member, not a human team member. So that's topics and conversations. Then you have to figure out your competitors. And your competitors are no longer that list of competitors you have written down somewhere, right? That says if you're minted, your competitor is Etsy and eBay. Sure, okay, but that's not the point. The point is more who's your competition because they currently have the topical authority. They're the ones that are active in the conversation. So you could argue a competitor of Minted, for instance, is Vogue magazine, right? Or Elle or something like that. It's interesting. It's not always quite so obvious, but it's super easy to find out. Just start doing some Googling incognito browser so it doesn't know who you are and go see who's having the conversation. And instead of skipping over the ones you didn't think were your competition, make a note because they're the ones that are actually your competition. Once you've figured that out, I want you to turn all that conversation into questions. And using AI is great for this. You can go to Gemini. Gemini Advanced is particularly good at this. I have a suspicion it uses a lot of underlying Google data, although they deny it. But, Google had that massive leak last year and it turned out they were lying about everything else. So you can go to Gemini Advanced and it's pretty good at generating conversational questions. The questions are what you're going to write content about. And you're going to answer that in the location and format that people want you to answer it. And I'll come back to what location and format means in a minute. Then, of course, you still have to do the right thing of driving attention to your content. That could mean social, it could mean email distribution. Shockingly, disgustingly, annoyingly, link building is still relevant in SEO for 2025. It stuns me, absolutely stuns me. This SEO's industry has been around for 20 plus years, and I think people have been ripped off for 2 decades on what is actually involved in SEO. It's absolute nonsense. And I know I can see one of the participants here is a friend of mine who's big into SEO, and he and I have often debated the fact that what people pay for SEO, and in reality, the things that an SEO does are often very smart, very capable, great. It's just the price that a lot of those things have been charged for. It's just not necessary, particularly in a world where you have AI making it more efficient for you. So let's dig into some of these. Your core audience, your ability to get your core audience to your website is shrinking, right? That's that 50% big headline we started with at the beginning. You now have to still do all the typical stuff to fight and maintain your audience, but also now you have to pick these tangential topics. And I hinted at an example of one earlier. And that was for FOMO.ai, you could say our core audience is marketers who want to win with AI in a sort of safe and scalable way, etc. Great. The audience for that is smaller than it would have been 12 months ago because of Google AI overviews. So now what we have to do is we have to create these tangential topics, and like the alternative to hiring a VA would be a great example for us. Some of you may have just seen what happened to HubSpot over the last 2 weeks. Google just spanked them. Like HubSpot for all of us was the B2B shining beacon example of how you do it, and Google just utterly threw them to the curb. In part, it is because Google is saying the topics that they've been writing about are too disparate from what they do. So some of their topics were things like, how do you go about forming a business and creating your LLC and doing your operating agreement and stuff. And we could all make an argument that says, okay, maybe that feels a bit one step too far away from HubSpot, but it was still good content for the small business owners and freelancers and contractors that they work with. And Google just said, no, and has utterly trashed them. So you have to be careful about these new topics that you pick, but it works, right? So we have a B2B client. I love to name clients in case studies. I can't on this one, but they have a type of software that helps manage unionized workers. And we started working with them on content and SEO strategy, implementing that playbook. And ChatGPT is now their fourth highest source of traffic in 5 months. So why is that happening? Well, let's go back to the playbook, right? We figured out what the conversation was around what they needed. And most importantly for them, we turned that conversation into questions. And we embedded those questions in the content. And I'm going to show you the right way to do that in a minute. But you can imagine if AI overviews is getting a question and needs to give an answer, it is far more likely to pick you and your answer if you've already written your content in the format of an answer to the question, right? It's obvious when you think about it, but most brands haven't even heard of most of what we're talking about today. So you're already massively ahead of the game. The idea then of, oh yeah, if Google's going to give answers to questions, why don't we give Google the answers to the questions we want it to have? That is why we got this result with them, right? Amongst all the other sort of box ticking SEO and amongst the content strategy and what the content is we wrote, that is what can happen. Now, oftentimes, particularly in some of these peripheral topics or audiences, you have subject matter experts or thought leaders inside of your organization. There is nothing more terrifying to most people than giving them a blank Google Doc and saying, tell me, Mr. Subject Matter Expert, tell me what you know, right? And I'm going to write content about it. That's terrifying for people. Very, very few people sort of have that ability. And so you have to leverage the conversation game again. And actually, I just realized it is for this same client. We do interviews with them. Our team will get on the phone once a month with subject matter experts and have a conversation with them, do an interview. We take that transcript and we run that through the AI engine and then give it to the content team, and that writes content. The way you can just do this manually is you can do Zoom Meets, mixing a whole bunch of platforms there together, Zoom Meets, and you can have a conversation with them, and you can find a tool that does transcription generation, and then you can give that transcription to AI. It's going to need some listening to and cleaning up. Transcription, shockingly, still not the best. And then you can start turning that into content, right? That's a good way to get information out of your subject matter expert. When you do it, and I know our client from PB 5-star is on. When you do it, you get the results, right? So this was our sort of B2B world. This is our sort of B2C world, right? And you can see this massive uptick in position 1 to 10 rankings just from being able to do this exact sort of thing. Now, one of the things that helped them win was this idea of generating lots of content. So they're a really cool brand, right? Fairly new still. They're in the pickleball apparel, shoes, and paddles. I play a bit of pickleball. Amazing stuff. PB 5-star. Check them out. They were a brand new domain. So how do you accelerate, right? Those of us who've been in marketing for a while, we look at this and we go, oh, new domains. This is going to take a long time to get listed, indexed, etc. Well, I can tell you the answer. It takes about 100 pieces of content. 100 pieces of content breaks the back of Google giving you the attention you want and you deserve, right? That's a lot of content. And so here's the other thing I want you to realize. Most people to date have been using AI to write content that a human could have written. And you're just knocking off, chipping away at the percentage of time that you can save. Great. AI content, though, can do things that you could never afford to do with humans. And that's what I want you to sort of leave this call with today, getting more excited about, right? It's what can only AI do. And that is where you get into this idea of, okay, there's volume of content. So for a lot of our clients, we will help them get to 100 pieces of the right type of content as quick as possible. Depending on budgets, you can do that in a month if you want to. But you can get there in a few months. That's perfectly reasonable. And then you continue the content output. And depending on what they are and who they are, we have a client we're onboarding now who's in a real niche B2B software play. 5 to 10 pieces a month, probably it's going to take 10 after they've got to 100, is fine. If you're in something like pickleball apparel, you need the volume, right? And so that's really essential. So I want you to have a takeaway here of, okay, yes, you can be using AI for making the stuff humans can do more efficient, but also I would need you to be thinking about it of what could only AI do. So this is great. I love seeing stuff like this because this is a whole brand new type of organic strategy that no brand would have implemented 6 months ago, and now it's the only way. So let's talk about authority for a minute. So if we flick back to our playbook, right? We have the knowing who has the attention on authority. So logically, you have to now have the authority. Google does this in two ways at the moment. It's safe to assume Perplexity is going to care about this in the same sort of way. You get into this situation of there's something called helpful content guidelines that has to be baked into your content. We then have what's called the double EATs, right? And it stands for experience, expertise, authoritativeness, and trust. Let's take an example. I'm British by birth. I now have dual citizenship. So let's take the topic of immigration law. If I had a friend who casually had questions about immigration law, I don't have a lot of experience in that, right? What, I'm a 1 out of 10 maybe. Therefore, I don't have the expertise. Therefore, I certainly don't have the authority, right? None of my other friends are telling that friend, oh, you got a question about immigration law? Dax is the guy to go to, right? And therefore, I shouldn't be considered trustworthy in my knowledge for that topic. But let me give you an example about niching down and why niching is so important. I have 4 kids in 2 countries. Some were classed as children, some were classed as adults, going through the immigration process, etc. Moved from England, moved to the States, specifically Colorado, etc. Right. If I had another British friend who was marrying an American person and also had kids in 2 different countries, and some of those kids were minors and some of those kids were adults, and they were moving to Colorado, damn right I have that experience, right? I know that process inside out. I know what it costs. I know how long it's going to take. I know what a pain in the arse it is, quite frankly. I've got the experience and therefore I've got a bunch of expertise for that topic. Therefore, yeah, I do have authority on it. And therefore, my other friends might be guiding that friend to come talk to me because my niche, yeah, give me that double EAT score, right? That's me. So you see this difference between, I don't want you to just have the idea of, well, I'm going to be on authority, or my brand or this subject matter expert has to be on authority on AI marketing. Well, what, right? What? And the more niche you can go, check there's enough volume, but the more niche you can go, the better you're going to win in that. So this is sort of how the scoring breaks down. And, technically it's sort of a hidden algorithm, and I'm sure Google are changing it a lot, but this gives you sort of a rough idea of how that works. What does this look like? Well, GQ magazine, good example for us. Names of the people that are authors. If you're putting content on your site now and you're not having authors and author pages, then you're just hamstringing yourself. Our PB 5-star client that's on, to mention them again for a second, they're on Shopify. Shopify, I don't know if it's changed now, but the Shopify default blog doesn't have this capability to do it properly. So we actually had to find a third-party plugin for them for Shopify. I think it's called Drop-in Blog. It's fine. It's not great. It's fine. But it gives them this functionality to have these authors, and those authors need to link to an author page. And on the author page, this is where you broadcast all of your double EAT signals. So this would be where I, on a topic that we were just talking about, would be broadcasting here things like, I went through the immigration process. I had these experiences. I'm really passionate about this part of it, right? Tom Ward here is broadcasting signals as to why Google should care about his content about gut health and how it's responsible for happiness. Tom here is doing his best to say, I'm the guy, right? And Google, he might not get a click to this content. Google might not give it to them. But hopefully in some way, Google's going to give credit. Credit's terrible right now in Google. I think it's shocking. It's going to have to improve because publishers are going to start taking some sort of action around it. But this isn't a hard thing for you to do, right? You've got to find your way, get the author bios in there, write really good author bios, ideally link out to other people. If you're going to have to do this for a business, reach out to me because we don't have time today, but I can give you some sort of HR guidance and things, because there's real consequences now to what happens if an employee leaves and they're one of your subject matter experts named. Focus in on your double eat topic, right? Make sure, though, it has high volume and low competition in an ideal world. And then you're not going to like me for this. You have to establish that authority, be in all of the places, or at least some, where your audience is. And let's flick back to that playbook for a minute. Drive attention to your content, provide answers in the location and format the audience wants, right? That's what this is. Go find out where the conversation is taking place. Chances are Reddit's part of it. This one is Substack, one from the left on the bottom, if you're not familiar, and Medium to the next of it. Quora is a great platform to be spending time on, although I think it's becoming a bit toxic. They're embracing, I think, a lot of adult content, and I think it's just sort of straining the platform. The point here, though, is be in more than one place, or have your subject matter experts that you're managing be in one place. LinkedIn articles now, long form posts, don't just share an article from your site. Actually give it unique content, right? So you can see this problem we're in. I'm sitting here telling you that the way table stakes is 100 pieces of content. Now I'm telling you, you also have to be putting content in other places. AI has broken content marketing, and ironically, AI is the solution, right? It is how you generate enough quality content, enough content at the right quality, and at the right price, right? And that is really something only AI can do. We talked about subject matter experts, actually, and I threw this slide in just before we started. My co-founder launched this last night for us. The way we do it is we now have this AI interviewer, and so you can just create an interview and it sends off a unique link. I see my client messaging me now saying, okay, send it to me. I will. It sends off the link, and a voice, an AI voice, interviews your subject matter experts for you. So imagine just doing that every week, every month, or whatever it might be. You can do that manually, right? I love to give you the answers here, not the pitch. You can do that manually. I just think this is sort of cool and fun that we happen to have built a solution for that this week, because now our clients can just send this to everybody, right? And it just feeds into the content team. So we've talked a lot about what's new. Let's talk about the fundamental basics, right? One basic is, why did I choose PetMeds, right? One of our clients. Well, it's because I could give you an image with puppy dog eyes, right? That's a basic fundamental thing in marketing, right? If this was a picture of a factory, you probably wouldn't have had the same emotional response, whether you realized you had an emotional response or not, to these little puppy eyes staring at us, right? And it's a pretty damn good picture of a puppy. So let's have a look at what those things are that still matter. This happens to be inside our platform. This is the autonomous content team, goes through these steps. We're not going to do a demo today, but if you want to scan that QR code, I'll give you a demo. But it essentially, you just give it a keyword or you give it a question, whatever it is you might do. And you can actually get that from, I mentioned at the beginning, in our platform, you can talk to your new AI colleagues, your AI team members one-on-one. This is the SEO manager. So in this case for PetMeds, I was asking it, go generate me a long tail strategy around flea and tick for cats, right? I might have just said for pets. And it went off and did that, right? And this is great because it allows me to see exactly what the results are for that. And it will do, I guess I did do cats in another one. And it will actually go off, and it has connection not just to AI to be able to answer these questions, but also to all of the SEO data in the world. And so it's giving me search volume. So I can tell you there's monthly search volume of 40,500 for best flea treatment for cats, and the keyword difficulty is only 6. Whereas in comparison, vet recommended flea treatment for cats has a keyword difficulty of 23. The precise numbers don't matter. It's obviously 23 is a lot harder than 6, and the search volume is a lot lower. So the idea of focusing on this is great, but you might want to go a bit more long tail. And so this is a great compromise, right? Best flea medicine for cats without vet prescription. decent search volume, decent keyword difficulty. Anyway, so you can talk to your SEO manager one-on-one. It will just do all this research for you, just like you're talking to them over Slacks or Teamsing. But this is what I wanted to show you, because we're going to talk about what are all those fundamental basics that are still important. So this is a piece of content we generated, the AI content team generated automatically. And so obviously the headline makes a real difference, and you can come in here and there were various sort of alternative titles we could have chosen from, but it's writing key takeaways. So key takeaways included in your article now is also big. You're helping Google pick you because you're helping Google understand you have a key takeaway, right? Because ultimately that's what people want, right? You ask a question, you want to know an answer to something. It also gives you the SEO metadata for publishing as well. So in this article, though, you have a couple of things. Note how the AI team, it's 5 or 6 people. They're not people. Who are going off and working on this. So it takes about 7 or 8 minutes. One of those is a researcher who will go off and read scientific studies and all sorts of great stuff. And it will pick, this is an external link, and then this one had indexed the entire site, up to date for this article, and found relevant internal links. Note how we generate half a dozen images for each article. And the reason for that is AI image generation, it doesn't suck anymore. We've largely solved it, but it's still not amazing. In this particular case, we got 5 images that are perfect. There's no extra foot, there's no extra ear, everything's great, the lovely blurred background, it's amazing, and we fed PetMed's brand colors into this, what we call the brand photographer, and so everything matches the color palette already when it comes out. So in this case, you could keep all 5 images if you wanted to. But look here in the content. Great title, intro, great images, giving you your H2s or H3s for your content, internal links, external links. And then we have some great data on bullets, and then we get into FAQs, right? FAQs embedded in an article in the right way, in a relevant way, that are using the long tail questions that your audience has. This is how you win. I would say some of your FAQs should be longer and more in depth, depending on who your audience is. This is about right, though, right? AI overviews at the top, it's not that in depth. And depending on how specific you need to be, you don't need to write them much longer than this. How many did we put in here? We put 3 in this one. It's about right. You can go to 5. I wouldn't go, many more, unless you are specifically writing an article about, the 12 FAQs about such and such. Then knock yourself out. Put as many in as you want. These should also live in your site in a different way, and you need to have topic clusters, etc. if you need help scan the code. But if you have internal SEO people, will be able to help you figure out topic clusters for this content. So that's great. So now you have this content. But in the playbook, if you remember, I also had this other point of, you need to drive attention to your content. Google at the moment still cares about, is social media pointing to your content? And so I hate to give you more work, but if you're doing this manually, I also want you to generate social media posts for every piece of content. The AI content team happens to do it automatically. Twitter/X. Are you calling it X? I'm stuck on Twitter. LinkedIn post, Instagram feeds, Facebook posts, TikTok video scripts, etc. Right? But I need you to write the social media content for all of these. If you're not going to have an AI team do it, use these really engaging, on-brand color, visually impactful images for your content. Okay, so I'm going to give you something to do if you want it. You can have free content by the weekend. So it is Thursday morning, app.fomo.ai/sign up. Don't forget the app dot in there. You can just try it for free. Just sign up, create a free account, and you can create 3 full pieces of content, all the social media posts, and you can have it entirely for free. You can also go in and talk to the team members. If you've had some nagging questions about SEO, go chat to your SEO manager. It's all fine. Try it. See what you think about the content. See how you like it. And I would say what's interesting for those of you who are going to go try it The first thing we're going to ask you to do is create your brand lens. And the brand lens is the beating heart or the brain of the platform for you that just knows everything about you. And it can take anything from sort of 3 to 15 minutes to go through creating this. It will do it for you largely automatically. But I want you to pay attention to it and take the time, because it's going to create brand tone of voice, brand promise. It's going to figure out value proposition. It's going to develop for you personas, or you can add in ones that you already have. And then it'll generate your content pillars against those personas. This is a step we really want you to take before you then come in and start working with the team members like your SEO manager, or before assigning tasks, writing tasks to the content team, right? We would really rather you do create that brand lens, because the results are going to be phenomenal when you get it out of that. All right, so that's my challenge to you. I am available for questions now. I'm going to stay on until the top of the hour. Happy to take questions based around any of the things that we talked about today, or any questions in general in relation to AI. The chat function is open, and alternatively, I think you have the option to raise your hand, and I can unmute you. You can ask it audibly as well. There's a couple coming in. I'll give those a second and start grouping them together. Scan the QR code. You can schedule a one-on-one with me. Happy to walk you through this. So a couple of questions. Why is Perplexity the best in your opinion? Well, should we try a live demo? Let's do something like, what is the best natural cure treatment for a flea bite for my cat? So a little bit like talking to ChatGPT, it is a threaded conversation, so we can ask a follow-up. I like Perplexity because it's playing fair with the publishers and the brands, and it is giving the credit where credit is due, and it's giving a pretty good example here. And of course, unlike Google in the past, we can now go and talk to it, and it will go off and it will search images and it will search videos, and interestingly it will generate image. I haven't really played with this, so let's try it. Oh, I'm not logged in. So let's see, for instance, coconut oil. Okay, and is coconut oil one of the follow-ups? Oh, well, now I want to know the answer to, can I use lemon juice directly on my cat skin? I don't have cats. No, you should not. Okay, good to know. And so there is this element of it turns search. I still don't know if we should be calling it search. It turns search or conversational discovery into, to a degree, something that's a little bit more entertaining, right? That's interesting. We just learned something about lemon juice. Question here about the volume of content. I'll come back to that one in a minute, because there's a few questions coming in about quality of content. So let's go have a look, for instance, at something like the Noom blog. Noom are a phenomenal brand. Absolutely love Noom, love the team at Noom, have really enjoyed our partnership with them. Their content, as you can imagine, has to be bang on brand. It also has to be super medically accurate, right? So interestingly, and if you need this playbook, I can give you this playbook, but high level for now, our process is we will take topics. We will sometimes do the research and the SEO strategy and the content strategy, but we will write the content and it will go through several reviews. It will first go through our internal agency team, who are professional editors. Our head of content ops comes from National Geographic and Chegg, and they will spend up to 3 hours per piece of content, right? To really, really, really get it very specific to what they're looking for. And then it will also go through SME, subject matter expert, medical review. And so you end up with some really phenomenal content. Interestingly, there is a need, you can imagine, Noom, if you don't know, companies like Noom and Weight Watchers have been pivoting much away from just being reliant on sort of point tracking or diet or behavior change, etc., to now being online pharmacies for GLP-1 drugs like Ozempic and Wegovy, etc. And so I just want to find, if we read a lot of content. There's some great comparison. Oh, and yes, and they're now getting into menopause treatment as well. And so there's some great content we wrote, which is sort of side-by-side comparison of the different drugs. And it's sort of cool because we had to train the AI team to create tables of features. Anyway, my point is, I'll keep clicking, but my point is, high quality content you can get a long way with AI, 80% plus. And then sometimes you need the human element. You can do that, or we can do that for you. There's a question here as well about how will this affect the hospitality industry, specifically hotels and members clubs. So really great question, Claire. There's some obvious answers, I think, first of all, which is you're going to have the same problem of people wanting to find you, right? And so hotels, for instance, you rely a lot on search and you rely a lot on localized search. I think travel is going to be one of the first things where these AI agents are going to do the searching and research for you. So I think hospitality is going to see the fastest reduction in humans visiting a website than any other industry. So that's an interesting thought. How do you then structure your site to make sure the agent is finding the things? And if you understand the topics and what drives it, right? So if you're a hotel with a members club, then you're probably not obviously selling to budget. So the headlines you have to put on your website now to grab the agent's attention and put it in the right bucket is probably something like luxury, right? And really focus on that. So I think that's an interesting thought. I think being a member of a members club at a hotel, the experience, the uniqueness, the exclusivity is going to have to be communicated in some way through the content. And so long form written content, FAQs, etc., that really speak to those things are what it's going to be all about. It is also such a competitive industry when it comes to things like SEO content, etc. Your bare minimum quantity of content is going to be far higher than 100. There are just too many questions. I had an ad tech company 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago, and we would collect 14 billion with a B search terms every month and use it for ad targeting until Google found a way to block us. 14 billion wasn't enough for hospitality because there are so many ways you could be asking a question and the meaning of those questions. And so I think hospitality is going to be a massive, massive, massive volume play for a long time. And I think you can only achieve that with AI because you could not possibly put out the volume of content you needed at the right quality. There's a few other questions about this volume piece. So there's no specific answer. I can't say to you, for your site, for your industry, you need this specific amount of content. For a newish brand, nothing's happening until you get to 100 pieces of content. Nothing at scale anyway. For an established brand, but perhaps you've been doing 1 or 2 posts a month, you're probably still going to need to put out a batch of the new type of the right content in order for you to be able to win. Now, 10 to 20 pieces a month, B2B, fine. 10 to 50 a month, depending on the sector, probably is starting to become the new normal. And I know that's shocking and gross. I think the automations are going to help you though. So we're already at the point, obviously, as you saw, where you can generate the images. AI is not going to generate your images yet, which is like your promotional image where you've got specific text and offers or whatever, but it will by the end of the year. But I do think repurposing content, taking an audio file, turning that into video, for instance, is great. We're starting to experiment with a thought leader at the moment, this great woman who has these training programs for executive women. And I'm really intrigued about, could we create her some AI team members? Let me rephrase that. Could I create her some people that are representative of her brand answering questions for her community on YouTube Shorts, TikTok, and Instagram, etc., that are not actually human? That's interesting, right? Because YouTube Shorts is desperate to beat TikTok, and they're not going to. I mean, I should say TikTok might not be around 30 days. Be interesting to see what happens there. If I had to put money on it, I think it's going to stay. But if it's not, YouTube Shorts wins a little bit. It still loses to Insta Reels though. So YouTube Shorts is desperate and gives you a lot of attention for organic content. So go where the sort of trend is moving to. So we're about at time here. Do please, just if you have any questions or if you want to talk about what FOMO AI does, if you want to dig more into how we can help you, content strategies, cheaper, faster, better SEO and content, content at scale, anything about implementing, designing this playbook for you, scan the QR code or go to FOMO.ai and schedule a call with us. And then feel free. Jump into the platform, start making some content this weekend. The URL here again is app.fomo.ai/signup. And you can create three pieces of content for free, easy for me to say. And you can go talk to your team members like the SEO manager and just ask it, give me 10 long tail keywords for my business, right? And it will go off and do that. Put 3 of those into the content, and now you've got 3 better pieces of content. Really appreciate you all joining. I know there's lots of content and there's lots of things you could be doing on a Thursday afternoon. So I'm always very grateful for that. Keep an eye out for our future webinars. And if you want to put your email address into the chat, I will make sure you're on our list. Thank you very much.